Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello, you wonderful homeschoolers. Welcome back to Homeschool Together. If you have a chance, head down into the show notes, like us on YouTube. Ariel, quickly check while I'm doing the intro. See if we're at 1,000 subscribers.
Oh my gosh, we were at $9.99 last night, you guys, and we were very excited about it.
So our next challenge is
we're about to make pennies.
Yeah, I know.
There are pennies to be made. Oh my gosh, we got it. 1,001 with a little comma, 000.
000.
We're at 1,000, so that's great. So we have that, and then we have to get 4,000 watch hours, which we are, 87 hours low. So if anyone has an extra 87 hours that you would like to just turn Homeschool Together on in the background and let that just run.
Stop homeschooling right now. Run to YouTube and just let it play. And then get back to
help
homeschool.
us make some pennies.
Thank you guys so much. If you have a chance and you enjoy the podcast, you can always do two great things for us. You can tell a friend and then also leave us a review on iTunes, and we have links below to help you with that. Today, we are going to be doing a Yeehaw Homeschool Roundup. Oh, I did that well. Yeehaw!
That was really
that was
quality.
I'm reading the sequel to Lonesome Dove
my gosh.
Called The Streets
You're reading like 4 books at a time. I can't keep up with
The
you.
Streets of Laredo right now. I'm McMurtry is a sequel to, I think, McMurtry's sequel to Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove, all-time great, one of the great books. I'm reading the sequel right now.
While you were also reading The Abyss.
While I'm reading The Abyss as well, yeah.
And
I was reading some Shelley poetry this morning.
See, you're always reading a bunch of stuff. I'm solidly reading like one thing.
Listeners will know I don't like poetry, but I was reading it this morning.
I mean, since we're getting off on this tangent, I am reading a series by E.E. Holmes. The second book is The Rebel Beneath the Stairs. The first one was What the Ladies Made New, and which I was like, what is that? It was kind of a weird title, but we'll put a link to it. But it's actually about like Victorian London, and if there were people that were born with magic.
Oh, sure.
But there's kind of a cool thing where the people who don't have magic made it like a religion around the fact that magic is a sinful thing. And so the people with magic are being kind of like oppressed, but there's this underground resistance kind of thing. Cool. It's been very cool. Anyways, that's what I'm reading.
It's almost as cool as my latest book, my World War I book with zombies.
Yeah.
Anyway,
almost as cool.
Let's get into it. So that's what we're into early. Let's finish it with what we always like to start with is the podcast. So let's talk a little bit about
it's been a long few weeks, and we're rounding up the last week of our parent partnership.
We now officially have a 4-year-old. So.
Yeah, we have a 4-year-old. So we wrapped up all the birthday stuff last week, and then we have the last week of our parent partnership. Yep. And I'm in the 5th week of my MBA class, and it's kicking my butt. I mean, I'm doing fine, but it's been a lot of work. And we're finishing up our year of Girl Scouts, and like everything is culminating right
this
now.
Week, yeah.
And preschool's finishing.
And we know you're at home, and a lot of you guys, they end the school year right around this time. The official school year is ending. A lot of people shut it down for the summer, and we were kind of thinking, like, let's talk a little bit of a wrap up. We talked about the curriculum that we're about to start a couple weeks ago, which is the Build Your Library Ancient Histories quest that we're going to be on.
Plus, we'll call it Build Your Library 1 Plus. Because I can't resist. And look on YouTube soon. We'll have we'll start doing some vlogging again.
We're about to finish the first week, so we'll start recording our first videos.
It's been really fun. I forgot, like I love history so much. So it's so nice to get
we went from the science curriculum with the prehistory right into the ancient history, which is very science heavy in the sense of archaeology and whatnot.
Yeah,
so
it's been cool.
It kind of has a nice thread of science. But let's talk about what the last year has been. So we attend a parent partnership, and this is essentially a public school that is catered to homeschoolers. And while they understand that the students who are attending that school are going to be doing, their curriculums at home, math, reading, their social studies curriculums, this school offers additional help, whether it is for reading and math, but also electives and fun classes that you can take, and
dance and
dance
art
and art and
metalworking and
woodworking,
there's all kinds of things. And there's a bunch of different programs. If you're in the state of Washington, a lot of our, especially Western Washington, a lot of our school districts have a parent partnership program or alternative learning environment, an ALE. If you're in California or Colorado, you may know them as charters, homeschool charters. I think they've got some in Alaska and other states. So they might not be called the same thing, but if there's any way for you to basically use your taxpayer dollars to take some homeschool classes, some of these parent partnerships, and even in Washington State or the charters in California, you can either attend classes or they'll give you money, and that money you can take to spend on your own classes and things. So
or your curriculum or
it's
whatever.
great because it's not like we're going to get a refund. It's not like we like our taxes. It's not like we get a refund on the fact that we're not putting our kid in school. So it's really nice to be able to use some of those public dollars that we pay for and get to put our daughter in classes. And so they do have a lot of great things. They have some extracurriculars, and they have special programs like Montessori, and they have a parent co-op, and they have a family forest school, and they have lots of different things. So the way we use it right now is very a la carte. We just we take a whole range of individual one class 1 hour of each class a week.
Yeah, so there's a total of 7 classes that we take.
Right. So we're on campus for 7 hours a week, and we just got to register for our classes for the next year. And we're leaning very heavily into the arts and practical stuff next year. Our daughter's really interested in, your cooking and sewing and that kind of stuff. And she's really interested in lots of kinds of performative arts with dances and things and music and singing. And so we're leaning really heavily into that. I think what's great about that is those are skill-based things that I don't have the skills in. So
asking me to teach music would be a stretch. Asking me to teach singing or theater is a stretch. Those are things that I'm not really good at.
Yeah, no, you couldn't teach singing.
No, I couldn't. What are you talking about? Doobie doobie doo.
No. Your partial hearing loss makes you a terrible singer.
Terrible singer.
Even though I'm a pretty good singer, I still can't. I still wouldn't know how to teach singing. So it's really great to lean into things like that are skills based. And if you're out there, this is the equivalent of having a piano tutor or something come to your house, or going to take lessons in at an art studio. This is the same kind of thing. We're just really leaning into it.
Yeah, we're kind of like shifting it to the school where there are qualified teachers, and a lot of the teachers that she is with are certified teachers.
Right.
We do not have as much a rigor at these classes yet. I mean, I think going forward, there may be more.
It will get to be more, but it's still never going to be like a lot because they know it's a supplement to what we're doing at home. The one thing we have decided to do for the next year is to supplement with some reading. We did this reading assessment. Our school district does this iReady assessment system. It's terrible. It's an adaptive assessment. And if you need to do an assessment for your child and you're looking to do one for the end of the year, make sure that the one that you do is not, if it's adaptive, really look at it. And adaptive just means that if a student gets something wrong, it's going to downgrade the test. If they get something right, it's going to make the test harder.
It's trying to find where they are.
It's trying to find the right spot. I think an adaptive test could be great for an older student, but for our young learners, our first grader, it was funny, our first grader and her best friend, they both go to the same school, both in first grade. They were both in tears over this test at the same time because the problem is that the test starts one grade level below. Then if you're getting it right, it goes on grade level, and then it will keep moving up. And there's no I don't know button.
There was no I don't know button, and there was no single question. So a lot of times it was a grouping of questions. So she would have to read a short story and then ask these questions. And you were stuck at that level for that entire time, and there was no way to get out of it.
And because there wasn't an I don't know button, your student could accidentally guess the right answer.
Yeah,
which happened to our friends. And all of a sudden, her first grader guessed two answers she shouldn't have known. She guessed them right, and she needed to analyze Paul Revere's Ride by Longfellow. And she's in first grade and she's in tears, right? And the same thing happened to our daughter, except it happened in math. She's very gifted in math. And all of a sudden she's at middle school math and she's in tears because she thinks she's failing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really difficult for these young learners to understand with this adaptive test that it's okay if I don't know. This is what the test is purposely doing. It's purposely making it harder to find the right grade. I just don't think they get that. And so we and the other family, we both abandoned that test.
We just shut it down.
We decided to shut that down, and we went in person for an actual reading assessment with a teacher. And that was such a great experience for us. And I'm really glad that we went in and got an assessment. If you're concerned about reading and you have, if you have one of these programs, that's great. But if you don't, and you have some sort of a tutoring center or something, having somebody, having a certified teacher or doesn't need to be a certified teacher.
A learning center or something like that.
Yeah, somebody who is skilled in teaching a subject if you're concerned about it. And reading is something we've had a little bit of concern about. We both read faster than our daughter is reading now. That being said, we both hated reading in school and did not discover our love of reading again until we were adults. So I'm not saying that the fact that we read sooner was necessarily a good thing, but we want to just kind of make sure, like, check in, like, you're always asking yourself, are you doing the right thing? Is your kid, progressing at the right level? And everyone progresses differently, but we just wanted to kind of check in, and we found out that she is doing well. Yeah. She is basically right on grade level. She's not above or below. She's right there. But one of the things that happened was she really, really loved this teacher, and she loved learning reading from somebody else. So we decided to enroll her in a reading class next year with this teacher.
This teacher is actually running that reading class. Yeah. And then, our daughter came out and she was like, I want to, learn more. I want to go learn with this teacher more. And it was really, really nice to see her kind of, spark an interest in through the teacher. And coming out of that assessment with that teacher, she had a lot of confidence because now she feels that she is doing well and she knows where she is. And I'm not feeling like I'm behind or anything like that.
Yeah. And I think, this could be a great opportunity if it's something you're worried about. You might even look for an online tutor, like an OutSchool, or, we have some friends down the street. They do a Zoom reading teacher once a week.
Yep.
Their daughter's in public school, but this is something that they do extra, and they do it specifically during the summer, just to keep kind of the reading going. And that's worked out really well for them. So, if you're feeling like maybe you're not sure, reaching out and getting a little help, just even to do an assessment, I think can be really valuable. And I'm glad that we did. So, coming out of this kind of first grade year, we can feel like, okay, she's on grade level for that. She's ahead in math. Yeah. And there are some specific art needs that we need to fill, some gaps. Rather than go ahead and sign up for, classes we have to drive all around to, it's easier to just go to our school and take them there. Yeah,
it's one of the benefits there. So that was kind of the end of the school year, working our way back towards the beginning of the year, thinking of it as sort of maybe September, August timeframe. This is when we were, I believe, finishing the Around the World journey. If you followed us on YouTube, you would have seen that. And then right at the end of that, we began to do the Blossom and Root prehistory with a combo of Build Your Library.
No, actually, that's when we did our big month of Harry Potter.
That's right. We did the Harry Potter move. Yes.
Yep. And then we finished up with... we finished up a few extra Around the World things, and then we started prehistory.
Then we started prehistory, basically.
I know it's all like foggy at this point.
But it was at the January timeframe we started that.
Yep, we started in January with prehistory, and then finished it at the end of March, right before our trip.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really good. I think that was a good year. It was very, very fulfilling. It was nice to finish the Around the World journey because that was such a with doing the combo, it was a long haul for us. It was almost a year, I think.
It was a little bit over a year, and we learned a lot from it. Because the Around the World was a little bit over a year, and then we did like a month Harry Potter study, and then it was the holidays, so we just kind of like took that time off and finished a few things, and then we did this big combo of prehistory. You'll notice that's like, oh, you're finishing your first grade year, but you're starting Build Your Library 1, like head scratcher. And I think that this is really where those levels are kind of guidelines, and we do go year round, so I'm not really worried about it. We're also going to be cycling back around. Our daughter will do this again when she's in fourth grade, because her this will be kind of her second grade year. She'll do this. Third grade year, she'll be with her sister doing Around the World again, although we're going to truncate it a bit so we can kind of keep it mostly within that year. I mean, with the summer.
Her sister's younger.
Then we'll do prehistory, and then we'll do this again. So
she's on the younger cycle for kindergarten. When she was maybe a little bit of an older kindergartner when she started.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot. I think this is going to be really good, and it's always easier to make things harder.
Yeah, it is.
That's what we found. And so our daughter is an older first grader anyways, because she has a late fall birthday. So she's already older, and then we're at the end of first grade when we're starting a first grade curriculum. And I have to tell you, we're a weekend. It has not mattered one iota that we are, basically what she's almost 8 and we're starting a first grade curriculum. It matters absolutely not. No. There is so much material in here. I mean, we're learning about artifacts and what's the difference between an artifact and a feature and a specimen. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I have to say I didn't know. And I think it's absolutely fine for them to be older. I know some people get really stressed out when it's like, oh, but it's level 1 and my kid's,
supposed to be a second grader.
Yeah, what are we going to do? Yeah. It's like, just go with it. And we know that our child was really going to enjoy ancient history. So we're just like diving in and really enjoying it so far.
Well, and it's also a 36-week curriculum, and we're starting it right now, which is kind of early part of June. And, we're going to go through the whole summer. And we're going to do the next 18 weeks. We're going to do half the curriculum through the summer. And so by the time her quote unquote second grade year would start, we're already going to be halfway through this curriculum.
Yeah. And I feel like the summer there may be some sloshy things in there. There's going to be time spent at grandparents and things. And
absolutely.
We're not going to stress about it too much because we are going to come back around. And I feel like with all these curriculums, it's not a race.
No, we're not.
It's not like anybody's going, well, hey, you didn't finish this thing, or, if it takes us longer, it takes us longer. What I don't want to have happen is I don't ever want us to feel like we're getting stagnant. Yeah. And right at the very end of our around the world journey, we felt a little stagnant. We had to kind of round things up there because we'd been doing that a while. Yeah. As long as things aren't feeling stagnant and she's still enjoying what we're learning, I honestly don't care what we're studying. Like, I really don't. It doesn't matter to me.
And I know the states have their specific standards on, beyond math and reading. But those standards are they're very loose. And it's not like...
Yeah, there's a few things like, in Washington State in 7th grade, you're supposed to take Washington State history. Sure. That's like a thing, right? And every state's going to have your pieces, but I think that she's going to retain more by doing this a little older than doing it younger anyways.
As long as she is keeping on grade level for math and reading, the fact that we're starting a first grade curriculum right now at the end of her first grade year, I don't really see that as a big issue. Yeah,
it's not bothering me at all.
I didn't lose any sleep thinking, we're starting a first. I don't care.
It doesn't matter at all. Like I said, she's going to be in 4th grade. We're going to do it again.
Yeah, we're going to do it again.
Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who cares? So I don't think it's a big deal. And anyway, the whole on grade level, not on grade level,
and we know
that's all just a construct.
That's all a construct, and we know that only matters insofar as maybe you're considering. That homeschooling will last a couple of years. You may go back to the public school.
Right.
Or if you're in a state that requires a certain level of assessment, formal assessment.
Right. And reporting.
That these are going to be considerations you need to know. So I know there's a lot of homeschoolers who will say, oh, grade levels don't matter. And we agree with them. Absolutely. But we understand that there's a lot of legal frameworks that a lot of us are operating within. We don't have as much of a stress on that, but we know there are other states that do. So it's important to at least keep that in mind and understand that as you move forward. Moving back through math, I know we are about to finish Math Mammoth 2 right now.
Which is second grade
Which
math.
is second grade, I think, second, early third grade math. And then we finished Right Start C. And then we finished Math Mammoth 1 and just kind of going backwards. So we did Math Mammoth 1, which was the review off of Right Start Math B, which we finished, I think, last summer. Then we did the Math Mammoth Roundup as kind of a review. And then we went ahead and did Right Start C through, I think, the bulk of this year. We ended that, I think, sometime in February timeframe. And then we went ahead and started the review. We like to couple Math Mammoth with Right Start as kind of Right Start is the core curriculum, and we do Math Mammoth as the review.
Yeah, and reinforcement.
And mastery. And I enjoy that. I noticed a little bit of, in this level of Math Mammoth 2, and we'll do a review on it when we're done. I think we have about 2 or 3 weeks left. There's a little bit of tedium building because she's kind of doing the same thing. She's been doing it a long time. She goes, Daddy, I'm so tired of, adding 2 numbers together, up to the hundreds, up to the thousands, and carrying or borrowing. to solve those equations, whether it's, addition or subtraction. So she's kind of like, I feel like she's starting to get to that mastery level of doing that.
Right.
And it's perfect because I looked a little ahead and they're starting to do multiplication now. And we did a little bit of that at the end of Right Start C. And it's good that we're now going to start to level up out of addition and subtraction into multiplication and division. I think it's a good time because I think she's kind of getting a little tired of doing the same problem.
Well, it'll be good to move into Right Start D.
Absolutely.
One of the things I want to talk about from your perspective as the educator is the difference between teaching a kindergartner and teaching a first grader. What do you see in terms of growth? Like I want to talk about this, and then I would really like to talk about the differences in how we're going to go forward, because we've had a lot of conversations about how we want to add additional rigor and additional challenge and things. But let's talk first about the growth. So what do you think in terms of the differences in approach between teaching a kindergarten student and teaching a first grade student?
I think the first thing that I noticed is a big difference between, my daughter from, early last year till now, I think is really her focus, her ability to do more. Mm-hmm. Like it became a capacity and a maturity. I saw this great, leap in maturity, understanding that schoolwork is important and it's good for us to sit down and do it. I don't fight as much. And I don't want to say fighting because it has a really negative connotation, but
motivate.
But it's like, when you're getting in there and, the will to complete the exercises with you, especially if you're doing like a one-on-one curriculum, like the All About Reading or the Right Start Math, and you're working together a lot of times to teach a concept, complete a problem using manipulatives or letter tiles and things like that. It was a lot more fighting back. It was a lot more frustration, I think, on both parts. When we were in kindergarten and doing that, than I am now. Now, I think she just understands that this is important. She needs to get it done. There's an understanding of, I think she's starting to understand that when she can complete it and show mastery, that daddy says, I'm good with that, right? And so she understands that if I can focus, the level of focus with the maturity of knowing that she's doing the work and doing it well, and that leads to not having to do as much of it, or that it doesn't take as long. I think she's really understanding that element. Not that she wants to like rush through the work or something like that, but it's the idea that, okay, this is a focused amount of time. If I get this work done and I do a good job, it's a short thing, and then I can move on to something else.
Right. She's getting that perspective, I think, because we used to tell her this.
That's the biggest growth.
Even as a kindergartner, hey, remember, if you can just, get our math done, then you can go play. And I don't think that she was able to kind of like get that kind of cause and effect and think that far ahead. But now she really is. She's like, she'll come to me in the morning and say, okay, mommy, I've got to do these 3 things with daddy, and then I get to do my audiobooks and my Lego. Yeah. And she already kind of has a plan in her head. And I wonder, I don't want to segue too far into the next thing, but I wonder if that's going to be the next stage in the evolution this next year, is letting her have some choice and control in where we start. Right? Like, hey, this is everything that we need to do this week. Yeah. What, how do you want to move it around? Because she may decide, I want to just get all my reading done, because I don't want to have to do reading every day. I want to just do it all, and then it's done for the week.
To move on with that, and we've heard that with some parents that we've interviewed that have older students, that they will, get all their work done on a Monday or a Tuesday, and then that leaves them enough time to say, go do some vocational training or to run a side business or something of that nature.
Yeah, definitely when you get to the teenage level.
Yeah, and when you get to that level, you can start to think about, okay, I can get my schoolwork done on 2 days, and then I have all this other free time to, chase some other interest that I might have. I think that is something that I'm starting, not that she's to that level now, but I can see the 2 points, and I can see a line that might connect those, and which is kind of interesting. And, we also want to, level up the autonomy. We're starting to give her a lot more tasking that she can do on her own. A lot of the curriculums are starting to, move towards her doing things on her own, like reading on her own, doing the math worksheets, things of that nature. I'm seeing more and more of that, and I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more autonomy going forward, which helps me because I got to start working with the younger one to bring her up to that level.
It was funny. I was talking with some parents at the Girl Scout meeting last time, and one of the moms was saying, well, yes, how's things going, having a middle school or whatever. And she said, well, I really hit my goal. My goal was always that he was going to be learning independently by 13 and that, he would, call on me for help, but that was, so every year she worked to move to the point where by the time her son was 13, he was on his own. And another mom was standing there. She's like, yeah, my son's 12. He's basically on his own. And, we do some things together. And it made me a little sad because
it makes me, just hearing that
it makes me sad because I love being involved in the learning so much. But I don't think that necessarily means that having a middle schooler, you can't be involved in the learning, but that they have the capacity. They have the capacity to learn and explore on their own and, come to you when they need things. And I think it's the capacity. So building this level of this greater level of both autonomy and responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that we've been doing, last year. I know that when you had her, or this first grade year, you have her read something. You had to sit there with her and make sure that she read it because she was not trustworthy. No. But now we can say, hey, you need to do 20 minutes of reading today. And that she's actually doing it. Our daughter is very recently into all things Pete the Cat, early reader books.
It's the exciting expressions and the meaningful eyes.
You know what's funny, right? We have so many early reader books. He's got this dead eye look
on everything.
Yeah, every time I go to one of these consignment sales or something, I pick up tons of early readers because I'm never sure what's the thing? Is it going to be princess early readers?
It is so weird.
Is it going to be Paw Patrol? Is it going to be, some other
Star Wars?
Yeah,
or something
we pick up all of these early readers and
Pete the Cat.
And we don't even own it. We own one Pete the Cat book, and she found it and loved it. Now we've been checking them out by the dozen from the library, and I'm not kidding. There's a lot of Pete the Cat, and she's loving them, and she's actually reading them on her own at night. Yep. And so I think that that's the thing every year. It's
you would never have guessed that would have been the thing.
Yeah, who would have
never have guessed?
All these, she's such a girly girl as far as loving fashion and princesses and all that stuff. And it was Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat's the one that's got her sparked, which is fantastic. I mean, but whatever it is great.
That goes to a lot of times you hear those comments there's going to be something that breaks through, there's going to be a breach, and you never know where that breach is going to be. And for us, it's Pete the Cat. It's just
right, which I'm totally cool with.
I know,
but it's really kind of funny. So that'll be the thing for this next year. So just now we're letting her read on her own. I think getting into her second grade year, as we go through the summer, it's going to be a bit more autonomy about maybe not whole week autonomy, but maybe just during the day, hey, we've got to do these 4 things today. What order do you want to do them in? How do we want to plan our day? And then having some more responsibility as far as going off and doing that workbook page by yourself. We've been using IXL a lot, which we talked about on a previous podcast, and we let her do that on her own.
We'll do a review on IXL here, maybe in the next couple of weeks. We're liking it. It's really nice.
It is, and so we're comfortable now with letting her do that on her own. I'm imagining maybe at some point here, maybe this in her second grade year, being able to say, hey, in the morning, yes, you can totally watch morning cartoons, but you're going to need to do a little bit of IXL first. Yeah. And she'll sit down and go, yeah, okay, I'm going to do one IXL every morning, and that'll be that. So I think we're going to be getting to the point where we can start making kind of requirements of her during the day that she's going to be able to fulfill. The other thing that's going to go towards that, more responsibility level is that she is now wanting to be a more active and advanced participant in performing arts. So she's getting into singing. She's going to be learning a musical instrument this year.
And she wants to get in a little bit of theater potentially.
Right. And she's in an advanced level of dance. She's been moved up to a 3rd grade dance class this next year because she's been in her dance for 2 years already, and she's showing really good progress there. So there's going to be however many minutes each day of each of those things that she's going to need to practice. And that's going to be another layer of responsibility, which I think she's going to be able to take.
Well, and also we're beginning to layer in sports in the coming year. We started doing that this past year. The past year and a half have been heavily into exploring different types of sports and trying to see if there's something that sparks.
Soccer, not a good fit.
Soccer wasn't a good fit. She has found that she enjoys basketball. And then we're going to be trying a little bit of volleyball. But even within this last year, if we're talking about a year-round wrap-up, sports has been another thing that we begin to layer in. And like what you said, going forward, we're going to be layering in more things that are going to require her to actually go off and practice and have that rigor. And I think this is the key word, is driving the rigor of doing something correctly and doing something over and over again until it is correct. The dance is a great example of that. She's going to be dancing with kids that are 4 years older than her, and they have been doing this dance our step dance for multiple years. And so their movements are going to be sharp. Their movements are going to be powerful and sweeping and correct.
Their focus.
And their focus is going to be there
and
too.
It's going to pull her up, I think. I think there's this balance, right? You don't want to overwhelm them.
Exactly.
But you do want to challenge them. And what I think is really interesting about this.
I think that's like that point right there that you just said about the challenging. That's a very fine line. And I think a lot of us early learner homeschoolers know that that's a very fine line. It's very difficult to do that without losing our kids. But I think it becomes easier as they get a little bit older and they're a little bit more mature, that they begin to understand the perspective of what they're doing, and understanding that this isn't something that I have been told I need to do. This is something that I want to do. And we're starting to make that shift into, do you want to do sewing? Yes. Well, great. Then you need to practice. And maybe another year of sewing and actually starting to push a little bit of rigor and challenge. Maybe she says, I don't really like sewing. I like the idea of sewing.
Right. I want to be a person who sews, but I don't like actually sewing. I was like, I want to be a person that uses a juaster, but I don't actually like to use a juicer.
You don't like to use
but
a
I want to
juicer.
be the kind of person that would own one.
Yeah.
So, and now someone at Goodwill can. So, but I think what you're saying about challenge, it's one thing about them being older, but I think the other thing is about knowing your child. And the longer that you homeschool with them, the more you know them. So I don't think it's necessarily because she's entering second grade this year.
No.
I think it's because we've done this for a few years now, and we know we can read her well enough that we know when something is an acceptable challenge, like it's a good stretch, and it's a tearing stretch, right?
Well, and going from the understanding where we've been essentially doing homeschool curriculum with her for the last almost 3.5 years now, almost 4 years. We're going. This is our 4th year, I think. To seeing that growth there, I really understand the people who talk about the idea that you don't start some subjects until they're 7 or 8 years old.
Absolutely.
And this was a point I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit earlier, but I remember it now. Understanding that they are mature enough to handle the material. Like I think Maria Miller talked a little bit about that, about starting math and reading later in some of the Scandinavian countries, not waiting until they're maybe 7 years old to start that. And having that perspective now that I have almost an 8-year-old, 7.5-year-old, going to be 8 later this year, I really understand that point. And I see that with my daughter, and understanding that, we might have started some things a little too early with her, and she wasn't ready, because I have seen in the last year this maturity, and that there's this ability to take up information a lot faster, having the perspective and the maturity to understand what we're doing here, as opposed to fighting kind of a younger child who maybe wants to go play instead of wants to sit down and learn to read. And I'm very sympathetic with that. And I think having that perspective as an educator over the last 4 years, I'm going to be approaching my younger daughter differently with that. And I know there may be some parents out there who are starting to think about, I have this train of children that I have to start educating. And maybe my oldest is like my scenario, where I'm in like a 7 or 8-year-old, and then you may have a 4-year-old and then a 1-year-old. Having the experience of doing this, I'm really going to approach it differently with my other daughter, or be a little bit more softer in the approach, and maybe not expect as much. I think maybe it was my own personal expectations that I didn't realize that maybe were too high or whatnot. But now I can see how she has developed as 7 and 8-year-old, almost 8 years old now. They're just different children. They're almost a different breed, going from that 6 years old to the 8 years old. It is such a sophisticated leap.
Yeah.
That I just don't think I could understand that. I have a 4-year-old, and I'm trying to remember my older daughter at 4 years old, and trying to remember like when we started Torchlight with her and the Build Your Library. And I'm like, the Blossom and Root early years and the Torchlight early years. And I'm like, man, what was it like back then? I can't remember that. It was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think one of the things about starting things early, and it's a real challenge. And I think one of the things we got caught up in, you'll hear people say, "Oh, before kindergarten or even kindergarten, just play. Don't do any formal curriculum," and that's great.
I'm a little sympathetic to that now.
I'm sympathetic, but it's also hard when your kid's asking for it, right? And that's part of the challenge I think that we had with our daughter is that she was so excited to start learning, and she was really, she's intelligent and inquisitive, and she wanted to learn, and she loved books, and there was nothing she wanted more than to learn to read. And so we stepped up and we're like, okay, well, we'll start a curriculum and we'll support you in that. Yeah. The challenge, I think, is when it is knowing, and this is, I don't know that there's a right answer for this, but knowing when your child really wants something but still isn't ready for it yet, and how can you give them them a taste, give them what they need without maybe
overwhelming them.
Yeah, doing what they're not ready for, right? Yeah. Our daughter was dying to read at 4.5, and we started all about reading level 1. And she wasn't ready. No, she wasn't ready, but she was dying to read. And so we were like, okay, she's super inquisitive and smart. She's got good vocabulary and, she's well-spoken and she's dying to read. Okay, we're here for you. Like, I'm going to meet you where you're at. And I think that we didn't really meet her where she was at. We met her with her aspiration, what she really wanted. Yeah. She wasn't ready. And so that is a super difficult thing to figure out. Mm-hmm. How do you support your child the correct way, even, when they may not be ready for the thing they really want? And I don't have the right answer to that. So I think if there's parents out there who you have a young one and they really want to do something, all I can say is just really watch that, because their desire to do it and their ability to do it might not be the same, but we need to support them and find good ways to support them. And I think with our older daughter, I'm sorry, that if we had said at that age, because she wanted to read so badly, if we had introduced her to some early audiobooks at that age, that might have satisfied her. Yeah. We might have not had to start actually formally teaching her to read, because I think what she wanted more than the ability to read was she wanted the independence of being able to get a story whenever she wanted a story.
Yeah, exactly.
Of not having to ask us, because at that time, when she was 4.5, we had a 1-year-old, a very needy 1-year-old. And
very needy.
Seeing through it, I think that's what she really wanted. I've seen other kids who really, parents start math curriculums with them because they're just like, they want the number sense. And our younger daughter's like this, right? She's like, I want to do my math. She sees sister do her math and she's really good in math. Our younger daughter's also very smart.
Very smart, yeah.
But we're not starting math with her. We're just playing games with her.
I'm just doing a lot more games with her.
Because we know that that's kind of going to meet her needs for being able to play with numbers, but it's not an actual curriculum.
Yeah, just this evening, I was like, hey, I need a game that does dice that we can count the pips.
Okay, this was sad, you guys. We probably have. I mean, I don't know how many games we have, but it's probably
how many we have. Over $1,000 worth, but under $10,000 worth of games in this house.
I feel like we're over 200 at this point. 200. I think we have 220 games. Okay, and you asked me for a game that our child could play that is a roll and move. Like you said, I want to be able to roll a dice and count the pips and have her move spaces. And I had to pause and think about it.
It's like, we don't have those.
And all I could come up with, that didn't have something more obviously we have Monopoly and we have, games like that, but that has all the other aspects of buying cards. But as far as just
you came up with Trouble.
Rolling
Trouble was good.
Yeah, but Trouble doesn't have a count the pips because it actually has numbers on the dice. The only thing I could come up with, y'all, was Parcheesi. Literally, Parcheesi is the only game in our household where you roll and move, because roll and moves are so boring that we haven't bought it. So I feel like we need to Goodwill Chutes and Ladders or something. Yeah, Chutes and Ladders would be perfect.
It would have been a Chutes and Ladders.
We need to get that. Yeah. Because I just feel like we don't have any of those because we're such game snobs.
We do.
We're like, roll and moves. Who wants that? Anyway, we digress. So point being, if you've got a young one who's really interested and excited about something, you might want to think about alternate ways to meet them where they're at, because I think that sometimes we push to go into curriculum and we totally fell into this trap. And we're trying to do it differently with our second daughter.
Yeah. I think she's looking for more excitement, like kind of what you said, that if our daughter had been exposed to audiobooks at 4.5, maybe that would have been fulfilling enough for her. And I agree with you. I think
she just wanted that control and independence of like, I want to dial a book.
I know.
Right?
I think
want book now.
And our youngest, really what she wants is interaction and playing games, and that type of stuff is really what she wants. And I really feel that, like, if I just play more games with her, she's going to learn. She has more of a photographic memory than our oldest. Our oldest really needs to be exposed over and over and over and over again to a lot of concepts like numbers and letters. And I think we've talked about this before, colors and all that stuff. It was very difficult for her to memorize things. Our youngest daughter, man, you show her something once or twice and she's got it.
She was great with colors. It took our older daughter like years to get colors.
Yeah.
But she's super good at math. I mean, it's every kid's so different.
They're all so different. And I have a feeling that we've talked about this. I think our youngest is going to be a little bit more frustrating in sitting down and doing the work. Like doing more rigorous stuff.
She's got a lot more energy.
A lot more energy, a little bit more flighty. And so I'm going to have to like be a little bit more creative. I'm going to have my own set of problems, as we all do. We have our own, set of challenges and differences, and I have to learn and then, adapt and change and whatnot with my youngest. And it will be different than my oldest. And, I'll have frustrations that I didn't have with my oldest. And then I'll have successes that I wish I would have had with my oldest. And
it's going to be a mixed bag.
It's always going to be a mixed bag. But that's kind of where we're at this year. This is kind of the summary of where we've come.
Yeah. I think going into that second grade year, we're going to be looking for, we've talked about the autonomy. We've talked about a little bit more responsibility. We're also going to be moving much more heavily. Of course, Build Your Library 1 has got more of the Charlotte Mason approach of copy work and
we're really
memorization.
We're really going to lean into that more this year.
We are going to lean into that more. And because memory is something that she really does have to work on, we're going to work on memorization with her. We also have done, we've played with handwriting, but that's something that we're also going to lean more heavily into. Yeah. And we're starting to really think about creative writing. That's something that we've been doing. I've been setting up these writing prompts to go with Build Your Library 1 so that she can get some experience. We did our first one earlier today, actually, and we did a speech to text where she made up a little story and then she drew a picture to go with it. It was great because it didn't stress her dexterity or her writing stamina, but it got her to give her ideas out there. So that's something I'm going to be looking for in second grade, getting her ideas out there.
And that's something that I've seen, kind of piggybacking on that idea is I want her to think in sentences, in complete ideas and complete thoughts that are structurally and grammatically correct, just intuitively. Like instead of saying, name me two things that can climb. You could say a sloth and, I don't know, a snake, right? And a tree snake or whatever. Instead of saying just those two things, you say two things that can climb are a sloth's and blah, blah, blah. I want you to think in terms of sentences. And I'm really starting to challenge her in her thinking that way. And I think doing this dictation is going to have her starting to think, hey, you've listened to a lot of stories, a lot of audiobooks. You have been bathed in really good writing. Mommy and daddy read to you all the time. I want you to think in terms of that, that zeitgeist that you live in, and try to see if you can mimic in kind of like this aping mentality, and just through, just reading enormous amounts or listening to enormous amounts of stories, can you regurgitate good grammar? In an auditory way.
And it's not bad. I mean, for her age, I'm really surprised. It's interesting because I didn't learn grammar until I was a senior in high school, which is a very sad state of affairs for the public school system. But I had read so much.
There's different schools and all over the place.
Right? Yeah. I had read so much that I intuitively wrote pretty well. Yeah. Without needing to know all the parts of speech.
And I think if she can speak in a mostly grammatically correct way, that when we begin to reverse engineer writing sentences and we start to understand the parts of speech,
it'll just come together.
It will just come together and it'll be natural. Be like, oh, that's my verbs. Oh, that's where my subjects go. That's a direct object. That's an indirect object. When we start to think about grammar going forward in the next couple of years, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade level reading and composition and writing, I think she's just going to understand it because she thinks in terms of, that's one of those things that I always like to say is, don't think in terms of words. We want to think in terms of sentences. And then sometimes when we hear people who are very articulate, they don't speak in terms of sentences. They speak in terms of paragraphs.
Right.
Or in some ways that you have a really good speaker, they're speaking in terms of essays, and they are putting together free-flowing speech.
Those people amaze me.
Are amazing, and they can give entire presentations off the top of their head because their brain is just organizing information, and they're not thinking about the word-to-word choices because they're past that. And they're not thinking about how do I present this piece of information and give evidence to support it, and then that leads into a next piece. They're thinking in terms of large structure of speaking. And I want her to...
Hashtag goals.
I know. I want her to angle in that direction where she has the ability to present information. And this will kind of go into some of the AI stuff that we're talking about maybe a little bit later this summer when we do a couple episodes on that. You know, our kids are going to start to be tested in different ways because once AI becomes ubiquitous and they're able to use it in their, you know, their homework and whatnot, the ways they're going to be tested on information, whether it's in schools, whether it's in assessments, whether it is in, you know, jobs and whatnot, it's going to become, you know, what can you recall face to face with no computer in front of you?
I think there's going to be a lot of that. What can you write, in the moment?
Composition books are going to come back.
But I think the way that we start
oral examination will come back.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that the way we start this, I did a lot of debate in high school, and that
debate's going to be good
having to get up and talk in front of people and be able to organize your ideas was one of the most helpful things I could have done. And so one of the things that we're going to start kind of this next year is presenting information. So where she is retelling what she's learned. Yeah. So we've even started this with Build Your Library 1, where we're sitting around the dinner table. Oh, tell mommy what you learned today. And she's, giving me a synopsis of, hey, what we found out about today. Mm-hmm. It's even those basic things of being able to retell that's helping her organize it in her brain. And
having
the nice thing is
things to remember.
Right. And the nice thing for us is it's giving us an idea too of the highlights of the things she's picking up on. So we're at that kind of point. She's going to be presenting some poems. That's part of the Build Your Library 1 is her memorizing a poem and presenting it. So that's a new feature for this second grade year that she'll be doing some of that. And we're going to have her video it, and then we'll send it to grandma and grandpa. That's going to be our kind of outlet for that. And then doing more recall and, kind of that oral discussion, I think is going to be really big for her. What I think is really cool, we talk about all this stuff. Man, I had no responsibility or autonomy in second grade. I mean, I went to school and I came home and maybe I had a little bit of homework. I don't know. It was the 80s. And, and we went out and played. I didn't have this kind of stuff. And I think it's so great that our kids get this fullness to be able to learn. I mean, I didn't learn how to work autonomously on something until college. I had to teach myself my freshman year how to organize myself to get my work done and meet my deadlines and, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's great that we're just kind of giving these little pieces year by year. It'll get more and more. And having this ability to, kind of slowly become a full human being and all of that adulting, quote unquote, we're going to give little nuggets every year. I think that's great because there's this extra part of it that's not specifically a curriculum. It's not history, right? It's all these other pieces.
I think also the access to materials and technology, I really am envious of where she is now. I wish I would have had access to unlimited audiobooks through the library, and mommy and daddy can pull down 50 or 60 books from the library and have them by the end of the week. And, I know we had libraries back then, but it's not what it is now. And
I mean, we didn't even go to the library when I was a kid. And then I had to go there for one assignment in fourth grade. Yeah. We went to the Scary County Library and checked out a book on Egypt or something. And then we forgot to return it. And my mom was so scared that they were going to charge us a bunch that we just never went back, and we moved. we moved states, and we threw the book away when we moved. And that was the only time I'd ever been to a big scary library.
Dump the evidence in a bag, throw it off the bench of the river.
Because we never went to the library. I mean, it wasn't a thing that our family, and even now it's really funny. Yeah. Your parents and my parents never go to the library. No. I mean, they would never even think about checking something out online.
We've tried to show them how easy it is.
They read on Kindles, and yet they would never check something out online at the library. So I think it's really great that our kids are getting this kind of round experience. And going into second grade, I think it'll be really interesting to see, kind of where we can like level up in all of these, as if she's this giant soundboard, which is like, adjusting all these levels.
It's funny. It's funny that she has these two parents are sitting in the office, smoky room and hazy. We're sitting here conspiratorializing her future education. Yeah, she's gonna learn how to do this stuff. Yes. We need to nudge her in this direction.
It's funny. It's like, it's great because there's this whole period of time where she gets to be such a free kid, right? Yeah. She gets time to pursue the things that she loves. She gets time with her audiobooks, and her sister got a big Barbie house, and they got to spend the entire day on Friday playing with this Barbie house. And we just didn't do school because we were like, this is so exciting, and what you need right now is quality time with your sister. I still
got school in on Friday.
Well, we only did a little bit.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, she has all these times where we can say, even during the summer, right? Yeah. Oh, the neighbor kids are coming down. We had school planned, but you know what? Go play with the kids. Yeah. And we don't have to do that. And then there's other places where we can be like, I think she needs a little more challenge here. Let's tune this up. Let's have her do her own writing prompt. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're like, it's great because I think we can just tailor it to what our kids need. And that is the greatest gift of homeschool for me. And I'm really excited about second grade for that. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
happy homeschooling!